Hello, everybody, and welcome to, not a trip report reading. You know what? I'll tell you about, the time I greened out and saw, like, borderline DMT visuals. I'll throw that in here at some point. How about that? But mostly today I want to talk about my relationship with weed, cannabis, trees, pot, green, Because I think there's a lot of important things that I should probably say about using this substance on a daily basis for years straight, as I have been doing. And I just want to get my experiences out there to help people decide whether or not this is a good idea. Because it will be for some, don't get me wrong. Maybe not for most. I don't know. Maybe. It depends. Anyway, I'm just gonna go over my history with this real quick, and then I'll tell you how it has helped and how it has not. So my relationship with it began purely recreational. I took a 25 milligram Delta 8 edible as my first ever experience with it, and got absolutely blasted. And from that point, I would just, occasionally do it, maybe once every few weeks, just for fun. And those were the days, because, man, I would get so fucking high off of, the smallest amounts of stuff. However, I was also horrifically depressed for roughly half the time because, in case you haven't heard, I mention it nearly every fucking video, I have bipolar type 2, which, long story short, makes it so that for roughly 50% of my life, maybe I have a good week and then a bad week, or maybe a few good days and then a few bad days, but for roughly half of my life, my brain just kind of suffers for no reason. And this was somewhat manageable back in my early 20s and before that. However, as I got to my mid and late 20s, it only got worse because that's kind of just how bipolar does. It progresses through your adulthood like that. I don't know how long it progresses for. I'm hoping it doesn't continue because that would be pretty bad for me. Unless increasing my medication dosages manages to continue to keep it at bay. I don't know. But it got to the point where I was starting to have some serious suicidal thoughts. Not where I would ever plan it, but I would think about what I would do if I were to plan it, how I would inform people, how I would say goodbye, that. I don't like thinking about this shit. But I did think about it, and I knew I had to do something about it. So I tried a lot of different things. I tried therapy, I tried psychedelics. My first ever psychedelic experience was 1.5 grams of albino penis envy shrooms. And I had an amazing experience where I realized a lot of things about the world and myself, my relationship to it. But it had no long-lasting effects on my depression. And I tried a few other times, increasing the dosage each time, but I never quite got anywhere, and this culminated in me deciding to take a somewhat stupid amount in order to intentionally have, a bad or scary experience, because I wanted to become more consciously familiar with the part of my brain that was making me suffer. I will write a full trip report on this experience at some point and share it on this channel. If you're watching this, years or whatever after I've uploaded it, just search 6.66 G, or 6.66 grams, I'll probably write 6.66 grams on the title, and you'll probably find it if I've uploaded it by then, because that is what I took. Out in the middle of the woods, at night, with a trip sitter, because I'm not that much of an idiot. And it was going really good at first. It was kind of cold, it started raining, but I told myself I was gonna stay there till the sun came up. I took the shrooms around 2 a.m. maybe. And I was bearing it. I was really cold and frigid, but I was come on, yeah, let's do this, I'm doing it, I'm fine. I'm fine. My body's cold as hell, but I don't give a shit, I'm doing it. However, eventually, because of reasons I will go into on that trip, I was on the ground of the forest, unable to tell myself to move my body, 100% sure that I was going to die because I was too weak to survive in this world. I realized that I've been doing all this shit with my brain software trying to figure out what to do to, like, really figure out what it is that's causing all of this pain and suffering. Is it something in my past that I'm holding on to, some sort of trauma? Is it a mindset thing? Do I just need, like, some sort of epiphany to make me realize that I can do it? But what this trip taught me was, it was none of that. The truth was, I was just weak. And I took no shame in that realization, and I take no shame in saying it. You know, some people, in certain ways, not necessarily in their character, but in certain ways are weaker than others. I mean, some are physically weaker, some have, like, you know, like, women have a harder time building as much muscle as men, for example. But, you know, the average woman has no shame in admitting that she is physically weaker than the average man, and I have no shame in admitting that I am mentally weaker than the average man. That's just that's just what be, that's just what it do like it be. I later learned that I had bipolar disorder, and that this is a genetic thing. This is not my lack of willpower. Well, it kind of is, but my lack of willpower is not caused by me, like, failing to live up to my potential. That kind of just is my potential. I just have a genetic brain disorder that makes me weaker-willed and in more pain and with less motivation and lower ability to enjoy life than the average person. And trying to, like, will my way out of that, trying to therapy myself, psychedelic epiphany myself, whatever, my way out of that, just wasn't going to work. I mean, it helped. It helped in some regards, but the actual, like, amount of suffering I would endure during my downswings was not changed at all. So after that trip, I decided, in my current state, life was not worth living. If I had to live like that for the rest of my life, I would much rather be dead. I could not do that. It would not be worth it. Like, that was a just pull the plug right now, he is suffering too much situation. It wasn't the lack of will to live. I had dreams that I wanted to do, and my life was going, you know, not perfect, but I was feeling pretty good about the direction I was headed in. I enjoyed what I did, when I wasn't too depressed to do it. So it was not a lack of desire to live, a lack of longing to experience life. It was just, that shit hurted, bro. That shit hurted too much. And so I decided, right, well, none of that shit worked, so let's try some antidepressants. And in the meantime, let's get addicted to marijuana, because, my life, like I said, life was not worth living like that. If I had to be high for the rest of my days, then so be it. But that's not an ideal solution. So I had to go through a whole rigmarole testing out different medications until I eventually got some stuff that worked for me. Not perfectly, though, and I'm still a daily weed user. I know I said in a recent video I was quitting daily use. I'm not ready for that. I realize I'm still not ready for that. I gotta do some more medication experimentation. But in the meantime, since that day, I've been using weed every day. I use it during my depressive episodes to make life not hurt, and I use it during my alright episodes to give me something fun to do, give me something to look forward to at the end of the day. Help me sleep. I mean, if I'm using it, like, every day, and then I feel good for a few days, and then I stop using it, I'm gonna, like, not be able to sleep. I might go through some withdrawal, feel emotionally worse because of that. Because weed is addictive, physically and psychologically. It's not heroin, don't get me wrong. But, anhedonia, after being a habitual user for a long time, is a real thing. It makes you feel happier, so it makes sense that the withdrawal from it could make you feel less happy. But I still kind of need this shit, and I needed it more back then than I do now, but yeah, I still kind of need this for now, and I'll explain why. But I'll start with it back then. But, regardless of what I'm talking about now or back then, it does the same thing. It helps just enough to justify it. It's not perfect by any means. Like, If I'm feeling really depressed and I vape like 40 milligrams of my Dynavap, hey, you should get a Dynavap if you smoke weed, because dry herb vaporizing is way healthier. It's not regular vaporizing where you get like oil in a cart. You got your actual flower, you just heat it up instead of burning it. You inhale fewer carcinogens that way. The standard Dynavap will hold about 40 milligrams. And sometimes if I just do one of those, I'm like still just as depressed kinda, but I'm a bit foggier and it's a bit harder to focus on the depression. But often a second bowl will get me to a point where I feel alright. And it doesn't always make me like happy, but it can at least put my brain in a foggy sort of state where the depression isn't like in my face. It's a bit more in the background and harder to ignore. I mean easier to ignore. I meant to say easier to ignore. This is me in the future recording. I meant easier. It also gives me a bit of motivation to work on some stuff. Don't get me wrong, it's like, weed does make you lazier, and it does make it harder to motivate yourself to do any work. But I get put into that place where most people go to when they do weed, except I'm not like lowering myself down to that, I'm raising myself up to that level. Like the average person, they'll feel fine and they'll smoke some weed or whatever, and their energy lowers down and they're like, oh man, I'm like chilled out right now. For me, it's like I will be in a phase where I can't do fucking anything. Dude, today, I had like one goal, okay? I've been feeling like shit the past few days, and especially today, because I'm in a downswing. I put my shirts away, and that took like all of my goddamn willpower. I looked at my pile of pants that I had to fold, and I was like, I cannot do that shit right now. And this was after drinking like most of a large coffee. I've learned that at least during my downswings, caffeine, stimulants in general, don't really work on me. Like, stimulants already don't work the best on me. I'm on extended release Vyvanse, which is supposed to last the whole day, but it typically only lasts a few hours for me. My body just metabolizes that shit like way faster than other people for some reason. I don't know. But when I'm in like downswing, Vyvanse can kind of help me feel just motivated enough to do like basic stuff, but not quite enough to do any actual proper work that I really need to do to get money for rent and food. Works just fine in my upswings, you know, for a few hours, not as long as it should, but enough for me to make a living. During the downswings, it just has a mild antidepressant effect, and caffeine has like it just makes me feel bad and uncomfortable. Like, it doesn't give me any motivation. It kind of gives me energy, but it just makes me twitchy and uncomfortable. I don't like it. I do not enjoy caffeine, at least in my downswings. And because stimulants work so poorly on me during my downswings, I have realized I can't really quit weed right now, because weed actually does give me motivation. I go from feeling depressed to going up to, yeah man, I'm just chill, I'm just kind of feeling chilled out. And that is a lazy state of being, but lazy is a lot better than being unable to do anything. Like, I wouldn't be recording this video if I wasn't high right now. And I'm recording this video instead of working on commissions like I'm supposed to be doing, because I still don't quite have the energy for that. Like I said, it's not a cure-all. It does not get me to a fully functional state. But it helps enough to where I kind of can work on some commissions, like drawing commissions in particular. I don't want to get high and do like a 3D model commission or anything like that, because I'm going to be slow as hell, and I charge based on how much time I take, and I don't want to scam my customers by taking longer than I'm supposed to because I'm high. I'm not going to do that. But I do a fixed price for other, like, you know, for drawing. So whenever my drawing commissions are open, I can at least get high and do that. Also, I probably would not have the brain to do 3D modeling while high anyway, but drawing is a lot simpler. For the record, if you want to commission me, I'm probably not going to be accepting drawings at the time. That's mostly just a thing I do in emergencies where I need money fast. But I am probably currently open for 3D model and music commissions. It's my channel, I can chill myself. You can find more info on the Mako Ray channel on YouTube. It's linked on this channel's page under the me section. Anyway, I'm sorry. So yeah, it's not a perfect solution, and I am 100% addicted to it, and at some point I'm going to have to go through a detox phase, which I've done before. When I tried out Paxil, I felt like weightless and free of my depression for the first time in my life. And quitting weed was like nothing. I was sleeping every other day, I was feeling nauseous, I was cold sweating. Like I said, it is physically addictive, like there are withdrawal symptoms. But I didn't care. That shit was nothing compared to how bad I felt before Paxil. Absolutely nothing. I'll take that over that any day. And then, after taking Paxil for like a few months, I plunged into the worst depressive episode of my entire life. And it took me a while to recover from that. So yeah, SSRI is not good for me. I believe there's a large body of evidence, or at least a body of evidence, suggesting that SSRIs are not the best for bipolar disorder. So yeah, my current regimen for an almost functional life. I got a psychiatrist appointment soon, I gotta figure some stuff out. But is 200 milligrams Lamictal daily, 2 milligrams Abilify daily. Vyvanse on most days, but I try not to do it and get high at the same time because I think I heard that can be like bad for your heart rate or something. So on days where I'm feeling really depressed, sometimes I'll just not really take the Vyvanse and just do weed instead. Not all of them. Sometimes Vyvanse is enough to help, sometimes weed helps more. But the Vyvanse, oh yeah, I have ADHD for the record, if that was not known to you. That's why I take the Vyvanse. It also has a somewhat of an antidepressant effect, so it definitely makes me feel like a normal person when I'm on all of those together, minus the weed. And it's nice. I enjoy feeling like a normal person for those few days out of the week where I have a few hours of motivation. Oh god. Yeah man, it's rough. It's rough. And I don't feel like I can quit weed yet because I kind of need it during those downswing days, because even if I did quit it and I on average felt better without weed after like maybe a month or a few months, I would still have my downswings that seem to all but negate my ADHD medications, and which makes me useless and depressed again. And I would probably just go back to using weed for those days anyway. But yeah, that's my self-medication experience. Well, the weed is self-medication. The other stuff is prescribed by my psychiatrist. Oh my god, dude, holy shit, I've seen 4 psychiatrists. Okay, I just want to rant about this real quick because, you gotta be careful, okay? The first psychiatrist I saw tried to prescribe me more SSRIs because they decided that I had regular depression instead of bipolar depression despite my cycles. I told them I had tried 2 SSRIs at this point, and neither of them worked, and asked them to justify their reasoning, like, okay, well, why try a third one if those didn't work and they made me feel worse? And they said, well, that's just how it's done. I'm going to talk about this in another video, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm going to upload a DXM and ketamine combination video where I talk about this at the end of it. But that one didn't know what the hell they were talking about, so I found another one who did know what they were talking about. They got me on the Lamictal and the Abilify and the ADHD meds. And my weed use went down once I had those. And my psychiatrist, they were like, yeah, you can, try to cut back on the weed still. But they recognized that, like, my everything, and including my ADHD meds, were helping me to do less weed. But then I moved to a different state, and I mentioned to my new psychiatrist that I was a daily weed user. And they decided to tell me that I needed to reduce my weed use before they were willing to prescribe my ADHD meds. I asked them why. They didn't have an answer for me. They said that that's just how it's done. I explained to them that they could talk to my previous psychiatrist and discover that my weed use went down after I got the medications that made me able to live a better life and not have to use weed to cope with it, but that did not seem to change their mind. So I found a new psychiatrist, and this current one does not even know I use weed daily, and I'm not gonna tell them. They seem nice, they seem like they might know what they're doing more than the other one, but I'm not gonna risk that shit. If you're able to, you should always tell your doctors and psychiatrists everything you can, but I'm not gonna risk that shit again. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say on that. Here, I'll tell you about the 2 times I greened out, okay? How about that? as a little reward for listening to all that. The first time I greened out, I didn't know what was happening. I was in my kitchen, and I realized that, like, everything was kind of starting to go black around the edges of my vision a little bit, and I was losing the ability to stand. I lowered myself to the floor and crawled back to my bedroom. I could not walk. Got into the chat room of a friend of mine who was streaming, asked them what was going on. They told me I was greening out, and I was like, oh, okay. And I kind of sat there and just waited for the feeling to pass. I didn't really mind it that much. It wasn't, like, awful. It was just concerning when I didn't know what was happening. The second time it happened, I was playing VR chat with that same person, actually. And this was after I had gone a week of no weed, because I was trying to quit again at the time, so I was like, okay, if I go a week, then I can go back to using it once a week, which was and still is my ultimate goal, once or twice a week, but usually once. Obviously that didn't end up fully panning out, but just that 1 week of tolerance resetting allowed me to get high as fuck, and I wanted to because I heard Terrence McKenna, crazy motherfucker, by the way. I feel like I just need to state that. He had some weird... That dude believed that psilocybin mushrooms had, like, an intergalactic, like, higher dimensional web of fungus or some shit connecting them to other planets. Shut the fuck up, automobile. But he for sure had a lot of wisdom when it comes to the art of tripping and psychoactive substance use in general. And his idea for how to use cannabis is once a week, as much as you fucking can, and you just trip off that shit. And that's what I tried here. And what this resulted in was, at some point, I was standing up with my VR headset on, and I got so, like, overwhelmed all of a sudden with this, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna need to sit down now feeling. So I sat down in my chair, kind of felt like I was gonna vomit. The VR screen was, like, it was completely blurry. I could barely make out the image of my friend who was standing in front of me in VR chat. And I took the headset off, and I was seeing, like, low-dose DMT closed-eye visuals, but open-eye. It was, like, rainbow flashing little pixels and, like, lines, slight little hints of geometric shapes kind of floating in the air in front of me. I don't know what that was. But yeah, if you have no tolerance and you just do like a fuck ton of this stuff, you can have some experiences. To the point where I would like to do an absolute, like, stupid fucking amount someday and just, like, smoke or vape until I literally can't anymore. But I'm, like, kind of afraid of that. Like, I know obviously you can't physically take enough marijuana to overdose on it, but that shit might be intense. But then again, I've, like, never had a bad experience with it. The closest I've come was those 2 times I greened out, and that second instance in, like, particular, I was just like, huh, this is a very interesting feeling right now. I'm kind of here for this, even as I was, like, kind of wanting to vomit, and I was completely, like, paralyzed in my chair. I still kind of appreciated the experience. Every now and then I get a little bit paranoid or anxious, but, I've done too much DMT to not know how to deal with that. Low dose, like, repeated DMT trips are honestly an amazing way to figure out how to deal with anxiety, because that shit's anxiety inducing. It's like, it's always a good experience for me, but I'm always afraid, almost always afraid before I do it. Sometimes I feel the calling, and then it's like, it's just a smooth ride beginning to end. Those ones are always really nice. But most of the time I've had to learn to more or less ignore my anxiety and let it fade away. So I don't really have problems with that with weed, because I know how to handle that. Obviously, it makes me tired as fuck, especially if I'm using it multiple times. Like, I can only get so much motivation off of it before the EP takes over and becomes more powerful. So again, obviously not a perfect solution, just better than the alternative of not doing it for now. And I've also had instances where, like, sometimes it feels like I can be a bit more depressed when I first take some. And it's a difficult feeling to describe. I guess it's almost like it makes me more present with the depression. Like, I take enough to get that kind of focus that you get, that presentness, but not quite enough to fog my brain up. But when that happens, a second bowl generally does the job, and then I'm better. So yeah, it's overall been, like, pretty much a lifesaver. Like, I don't know if I would have been able to last this long without it. Like, I probably would have, because I don't want to kill myself until I've tried basically everything I can try to get rid of the feelings that make me want to kill myself. For the record, I'm not really suicidal right now. Sometimes I worry that I'm not going to be able to get better, or my bipolar is going to get worse as I age, and the meds aren't going to be enough to stop it. Sometimes I worry I'm gonna just be half useless for the rest of my life because of the ADHD bipolar combination. And that can make me feel a little hopeless at times, but I can't deny the fact that as I've experimented with these medications, I have been getting slowly better. So that keeps me going. Even if it takes years still, I still have hope that I can get somewhere to where life is, you know, life's worth living now. I have my good times. I generally enjoy my upswing days. My downswings aren't as bad as they used to be. They aren't nearly as bad as they used to be. Oh my god, it used to be bad. Okay, this is probably already a long video, even though I don't feel like I've been talking for that long. Actually, I kind of do feel like I've been talking for that long. This has been going on a while, hasn't it? I'm gonna end it here unless I think of another thing to say. I'll end it by saying, be honest with what you're doing. If you're using weed every day, you're probably addicted to it, even if you don't realize it. And maybe you can quit it, like, no problem, you know, go through a few days of physical withdrawal and deal with the resulting anhedonia for a month or a few months, however long it takes. Me, I don't think it'd be worth it to try to quit right now. So I will remain addicted for the time being, but my goal is to change that in the future. You know, I'll admit that. You know, a lot of people who use weed every day, they pretend like there's no physical dependency on it. There is, and there's mental dependency as well. It's just not as bad as a lot of other substances. So yeah, just make sure you're making an informed decision based on careful consideration if you are going to self-medicate for whatever reason with marijuana. I'll see y'all next time in a probably more standard trip report video. I'm gonna go get myself some purple haze and punch a guy's jaw off or something. I don't know. That's what JoJo told me you can do with that.